Hello and welcome to this Friday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun Samad Mahendran and let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. US President Donald Trump has vowed that the United States will soon put a fairly substantial tariff on semiconductors coming into the country. Now, this comes after previously threatening a 100% levy on the chips. He did not, however, give a timetable or any details whatsoever for this new levy, which he has repeatedly threatened in the past as well to be enacted. Now, Trump in early August sparked volatility in Asian chipmaker shares with talk of 100% tariffs on semiconductors from firms that do not invest in the United States. Now, this as the United States and China are locked in a high-stakes race to develop the high-end semiconductors used to power artificial intelligence systems. Meanwhile, my colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for the latest of this. And for our viewers who are just joining in, US President Donald Trump has in fact vowed that the US will soon put fairly substantial tariff on semiconductors coming into the country. We have my colleague Vishal Vivek joining us. Vishal, what do you make of this latest statement coming in from Trump, and how is China to react, which has a majority in the semiconductor market going up to as much as 90%, Vishal?
Well, this was highly expected, and Trump had spoken on the same lines in the recent past. In fact, in August first week, he had suggested that the tariffs could be as high as 100% on these semiconductors going into the US territory. He has not commented on the figures in this instance, and he has not even given the timeline as to when he would go on and implement these tariffs. But he has said that these will be substantial tariffs. Not very high, but substantial. What he exactly means by that remains to be seen. But as you rightly mentioned, China is one of the biggest markets for semiconductors, and both US and China have been, going with a tussle that whoever comes at the top will be, the sort of the king of the semiconductor business. They're both the biggest, customers and producers of semiconductors. The big fight is going on. So Trump seems to be at the center of this showdown. He has already arm-twisted many companies into signing a deal with the US. Whether he manages to do the same, that remains to be seen. We saw that he was able to arm-twist Intel into signing a deal. NVIDIA is also under similar pressure. Both are some of the biggest companies in the world, so it will have to be seen how China responds to this, because China has the rare earth minerals that are used in a lot of these semiconductors manufacturing business. So all of this that is interconnected, and we'll only know what happens when Trump announces the tariffs and announces the timeline for these tariffs to kick in.
Of course, what Donald Trump means remains to be seen, Vishal, as it is the case with most of the things or the announcement he's made since coming back to office on the 20th of January, this time for a second term over. We stay with Washington, where Trump is expected to sign an executive order Friday that will change the name of the Defense Department, or the Pentagon, as we know it, to the Department of War. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth indicated the name change would be coming on Friday, earlier on Thursday. Now, the Department of War, viewers, as it was once called initially, was first established by President George Washington when he founded the country's army. However, the name was later changed in 1949 under President Truman. Donald Trump welcomed top tech CEOs or tech pros at the White House on Thursday, but it was Meta's Mark Zuckerberg who delivered the viral moment of the day. Now, what happened, you may ask? Well, he caught on a hot mic. Zuckerberg chuckled, "Sorry, I wasn't paying attention," after being pressed on free speech, where in the United Kingdom. The US president teased him, saying, "This is the beginning of your political career," to which Zuckerberg did not miss a beat before saying, and firing back, in fact, "No, it's not." Listen in.
Mr. President, you'll be heading to the UK in a few weeks. Yesterday, Nigel Farage was on Capitol Hill. He really was talking a lot about pushing back on censorship online. He was asking politicians like yourself, some of the people in this room, to really push back on that. How concerning is that to you? And Mr. Zuckerberg, if you don't mind answering, how concerning is that to you, the lack of freedom of speech online in the UK?
You didn't think you'd get that question. He's looking at me saying, how the hell? He's saying, how did I get that question? If you'd like to answer, free speech.
Sorry, actually I wasn't paying attention. But
There seems to be a crackdown. The British government seems to be cracking down on social media posts, people being arrested for tweets, social posts. Just wondering how concerning that is to you, Mr. President, and Mr. Zuckerberg.
This is the beginning of your political career.
no, it's not.
Former U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton has said that President Trump's one strong personal rapport or the relationship with India's Prime Minister Modi has collapsed. Now, he's blamed Donald Trump for pushing back the bilateral ties by decades together. Now, Bolton's remarks come at a time many view as this as the lowest point in New Delhi-Washington ties in more than 2 decades. This, of course, strained by Trump's tariffs and repeated criticism of New Delhi. Bolton also argued that Trump used diplomacy narrowly through his personal ties with leaders, a perspective that has hurt U.S. policy. The former NSA did not stop here. He had earlier called Trump's tariffs on India's purchase of Russian oil an unforced error that risked driving New Delhi into the Beijing-Moscow axis. French President Emmanuel Macron, in a joint news conference with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, has said that 26 of Ukraine's allies have pledged to deploy troops as a reassurance force for the war-torn country. Now, speaking after a meeting of the so-called Coalition of the Willing in capital Paris, Macron said the countries had committed to deploying troops to Ukraine or to maintaining a presence on land, at sea, or in the air. Now, this to help guarantee the country's security the day after a ceasefire or peace is achieved. Meanwhile, listen into what the French president had to say.
Le deuxième élément de ces garanties de paix et de sécurité, c'est ce qu'on a appelé les forces de réassurance. En effet, nous avons aujourd'hui 26 pays qui formellement se sont engagés, plusieurs autres encore à clarifier leur position, mais 26 pays qui se sont engagés à déployer comme force de réassurance des troupes en Ukraine ou à être présents sur le sol, en mer ou dans les airs pour apporter cette réassurance au territoire ukrainien et à l'Ukraine le jour d'après le cessez-le-feu ou la paix. Cette force n'a pas pour volonté ou pour objectif de mener quelques guerres contre la Russie, mais c'est une force qui doit garantir la paix et apporter très clairement un signalement stratégique. Elle se déploiera dans le cadre d'un cessez-le-feu, pas sur la ligne de front, mais dans des géographies qui sont en train d'être définies, mais elle vise à prévenir toute nouvelle agression majeure et à impliquer les 26 États très clairement dans la sécurité durable de l'Ukraine.
2 armed Venezuelan F-16 fighter jets flew over the U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer Jason Dunham in the South Caribbean Sea in a show of force on Thursday. Now, in the latest escalation of tensions between the Trump administration and President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, the U.S. warship did not engage, the Department of Defense added in their statement. Now, this comes after the U.S. military killed 11 aboard a vessel from Venezuela in the Caribbean on Tuesday that Trump said was carrying illegal narcotics and that, in fact, belonged to a drug cartel he designated a terror organization. Police in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro freed 2 hostages, including a child, during a raid Thursday on a drug trafficking ring that prompted an intense shootout in a low-income neighborhood, leaving 8 gang members dead. Now, the operation targeted the criminal organization also known as the Pure Third Command, including a trafficker nicknamed the Coronel, who was accused of murdering a woman in August this year. The hostages were released safely. Authorities also arrested 2 people as they were trying to take control of a bus, which then they were trying to use as a barricade to stop the agents' access to the urban neighborhood. In addition to this, the police also seized 4 automatic rifles. Across the northern border in the U.S., the Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., facing pointed bipartisan questioning at the heated 3-hour Senate committee hearing on Thursday, tried to defend his efforts to pull back COVID-19 vaccine recommendations or mandates in this case and explain the turmoil he has created at the federal health agencies. Kennedy said the fired CDC director was untrustworthy, stood by his past anti-vaccine rhetoric, and also disputed reports of people saying they have had difficulty getting COVID-19 shots. AP's Matt Brown brings us more.
That's not the way it works.
Will you
You
commit,
don't even know what you're talking
Mr.
about.
Secretary, will you commit to sharing the protocols for the study by the end of the month?
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was defensive and defiant in a hearing where Democrats and Republicans both pressed him on questions about his tenure in office thus far. Kennedy faced questions from senators on the Senate Finance Committee about his stances on vaccines, autism, chronic illnesses facing Americans, as well as his treatment of public health officials throughout the federal government. Kennedy pushed back on claims that he did not know what he was doing or that he was supporting conspiracy theorists in office, and also faced intense questions from senators such as Senator John Barrasso and Bill Cassidy, both Republicans and medical doctors, who expressed concerns that Kennedy was violating certain oaths that he'd made to them about his stances on vaccines. Democrats, meanwhile, often called for Kennedy to resign from his position, a characterization that Kennedy strongly pushed back on over his claims on issues such as vaccines for children, as well as his ties to the late trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. The controversy of the hearing underscores a turmoil and changes that have gone on inside of federal health agencies such as the CDC and HHS broadly.
Members of California's Sikh trucking community say a deadly crash involving one of its own, which triggered heated national debates over immigration on and all, is being manipulated to fuel anti-Sikh rhetoric. On the 12th of August, Harjinder Singh, an Indian-born truck driver, made a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike that authorities say caused a crash that killed 3 people. Now, the crash and the subsequent investigations turned arguments between Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. It also sparked online vitriol denigrating members of the monotheistic religion who often covet high-paying trucking jobs that allow Sikh men to wear beards, uncut hair and turbans as part of their face. Bhupinder Kaur, meanwhile, who works for the United Sikhs and whose father owns a gas station in the same area, says the response has been devastating, in her words. Now, Kaur also added that the UN-affiliated organization has been supporting the victims as well as Singh. Here's more.
So a large population of the truck community is Sikh truckers. And so when an accident like this occurs, it doesn't affect just one family, it affects the entire community.
A lot of people are throwing hate for no reason at the community just because we wear the turban. And they have been victimizing the turban at the time, and which is not right. It was a human error.
We had a communal day of solidarity where we invited lots of community leaders and just community in general. And unfortunately, even during that protest, a car had driven by and pulled down their window and yelled out racial slurs as we were there to support the community. So there's a lot of misinformation, and I think if people know the general good of what Sikhs are, what they stand up for, how it means how to help one another, just our articles of faith that we wear are the turban being the main identifying feature of a person who is a Sikh. My own family, they're all turban Sikhs. My husband is a truck driver, and my cousins are truck drivers as well.
A magnitude 6.2 earthquake struck southeastern Afghanistan on Thursday. It's the third tremor in the same region since Sunday, when one of the country's deadliest quakes in years killed more than 2,200 people. Now, this tremor at a depth of 10 kilometers followed the earlier quakes that flattened villages in the Kunar and the Nangarhar provinces, left tens of thousands homeless, and also injured more than 3,600 people. Survivors have been left without shelter as aid groups mourn of dwindling resources, with the United Nations and other agencies citing a critical need for food, medical supplies, and even shelter. We shift our focus to Southeast Asia, where Thailand's parliament is meeting to vote on the country's third prime minister in 2 years. This after days of political chaos ensued. The vote comes 6 days after the court sacked former leader Pentotan Shinawatra as prime minister in an ethics violation case, triggering a scramble for power and a bold offensive by a renegade party to form its own government. Now, Shinawatra's removal kicked off a political scramble with the populist Pheu Thai party, won 5 of the past 6 elections, has fought desperately to thwart the challenge of former alliance partner Bamjuthai party. The turmoil has put the Bamjuthai leader Anutin in the role position ahead of Friday's vote, where he needs the support of more than half of the lower house to become the next Prime Minister of Thailand. Prosecutors in Argentina charged the daughter of a fugitive Nazi official with trying to hide an 18th century painting from authorities following revelations that it had been stolen from a Jewish art dealer during the Second World War. The federal prosecutor in charge of the case announced the cover-up charge a day after Patricia Cardigan, one of the daughters of high-level Nazi official Friedrich Cardigan, handed portrait of a lady by Italian artist Giuseppe Gisland to the Argentine judiciary 8 decades after it was initially stolen. Now, the fate of the work remains unclear pending a decision in the case. Well, it's time we step into a short break. With that, much more on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the World Report on NDTV. Now we get you updates from the world of business, viewers, where Donald Trump has signed an executive order Thursday to implement a trade deal with Japan with 15% baseline tariffs on most Japanese goods. Now, this also includes autos. The deal had been reached in July after months of negotiations, with Washington and Tokyo both continuing to haggle over details for weeks before it was eventually signed on Thursday. Now, as part of this deal, Tokyo agreed to invest $550 billion in projects selected by the US government and also ramp up its purchase of American agri-products such as corn and soya beans, as well as US-made commercial aircrafts and defense equipment as well. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba welcomed the decision with a hope to build a golden era of Japan-US relations under Donald Trump. Listen in.
我が国といたしましては、7月22日の日米間の合意以降、アメリカの1日も早い、アメリカ側の1日も早い関税の引き下げを実現することを最優先として、調整を続けてまいりました。その結果、本日トランプ大統領により我が国に対する関税の引き下げ措置に関する大統領令が署名されたということでございます。これをお届けをし、トランプ大統領とともに日米関係の黄金時代を共に築いていきたいと、そしてトランプ大統領をぜひ日本にご招待したいという内容の親書を赤澤大臣を通じてお届けをしたところでございます。
Nepal on Thursday banned social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, among others, for failing to register with the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology within the given deadline. Now, according to a notice issued by the ministry, the social media companies were given 7 days from the 28th of August to register. Even when the deadline expired on Wednesday night, none of the large-scale social media companies, including Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Alphabet, X, Reddit and LinkedIn, submitted applications. Viewers, a 102-year-old Japanese man, Kokichi Akuzawa, has become the oldest person to climb Mount Fuji, despite having a serious heart condition that is, as certified by the Guinness World Records in August 2025. Now, he achieved this feat after training by climbing mountains almost weekly, although he modestly dismissed the accomplishment. The retired livestock farmer from the Gunma region or the province completed his ascent of Japan's highest peak, which, by the way, stands at 3,776 meters in early August. The Paraguayan football fans celebrated their country's return to the World Cup after a 0-0 home draw with Ecuador secured their place at the next summer's tournament. Paraguay, by the way, hasn't qualified for a World Cup ever since 2006, but ensured on Thursday that their 20-year wait is finally over. And now that qualification, by the way, is secured, fans are looking forward for the team to making history at the 2026 FIFA World Cup by going one phase better than their quarter-final finish back in 2006. Updates from the world of entertainment, viewers, where Italian fashion legend Giorgio Armani has passed away. Armani, who was adored by millions around the world for giving suave sense of style, ruled the world of fashion in the 70s and the 80s. This report, meanwhile, brings you more on his life and his legacy.
Iconic Italian fashion designer Giorgio Armani has passed away. At the age of 91, Italian fashion king Giorgio Armani, who led multiple brands under his name, created one of Italy's most wealthiest fashion brands. Armani led with a single aesthetic mantra: elegance and sophistication never goes out of style. He reimagined Italian tailoring and suits for the modern audience and became synonymous with high-end luxury, even branching out in music, sports, and luxury hotels. Some of his iconic muses were actor Cate Blanchett, Anne Hathaway, and even Bollywood fashionista Sonam Kapoor. His red carpet dresses and tuxes got actors their Oscars and a seal of style icon. Armani coined the term power dressing in the 70s and 80s, with sharp suits for him and her. Elegant and fluid evening wear that made women feel exclusive and expensive. Many around the world called him the fashion king, and Armani became the ultimate aspiration. Signor Armani, as his employees and team called him, worked till the last day of his life. He tailored several generations of high glamour and fashion. This is Mayank Chaudhary for NDTV.
We shift our focus to the world of sports, viewers, where the NFL season opener between the Kansas City Chiefs and the LA Chargers in Brazil, Sao Paulo on Friday is drawing interest from more than just football fans. Taylor Swift admirers will also be present there. Now, neither the NFL nor the Corinthians, the soccer club that owns the stadium, have confirmed whether the pop superstar will actually eventually attend the match. Still, several Brazilian media outlets have reported that local broadcasters are in fact preparing for the possibility of her appearance, and also for some fans that's more than enough. Here's more.
Quando a gente comprou os ingressos, a gente já sabia que era o Tariffs que ia jogar. E eu me senti comprando ingresso pro show da Taylor Swift. Eu falei, a gente precisa desse ingresso. A gente precisa comprar esse ingresso. E é um ingresso super concorrido.
And viewers, Onam is here and we're bringing you the spirit of Kerala, but not from Kerala, right from London. NDTV's Radhika Iyer spoke to some Indians celebrating. We leave you with these visuals. Have a lovely weekend.
The concept of an Onam Sadhya just never dies. I've seen Malayalis in different parts of the world, met with them, but when it's around Onam, somehow or the other resources are pulled together to prepare somewhat of an Onam Sadhya. What drives that?
The most important thing, Onam falls almost at the beginning of new season in India, in Kerala. After the rains, the soil is fresh, the harvest is done, the cellars are full of grains and vegetables. So we tend to share the harvest with people, especially when during Onam we share the meal. And Onam meal is supposed to be one of the healthiest Kerala meals. It's because it's a very balanced food. In Ayurveda, it is defined as the meal that comes with the Shadrasa, 6 flavors. So all 6 flavors are integrated in one meal.